Welcome to the Gold Standard here on the 440 Sports Network, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. That is Emma Lingan, hockey writer, commentator, expert extraordinaire. You can find her bathing in the streets of the Twitter sewers. Emma, I'm Braden Gall, by the way, just Braden Gall. Emma, how are you this afternoon on a Wednesday?
Bathing in the streets. I'm not sure you can find me there, but
I meant to say bathing in the sewers. That's what I meant to say. I screwed it up.
Well, you won't find me there either.
I was
But
on a roll.
I'm-
I was on a roll. I was bringing energy, and then I screwed it all up. So,
Well,
sort of like
you
the
tried.
Preds in
Sorry.
Sweden,
Yeah, exactly. Good segue.
Kevin and Smeagol, good to see you guys in the comments. If you'd like to be involved in this show, I am going to present, and if you're a subscriber to Lower About Hockey, you've already seen it. I wrote a column this week about time for change for the Nashville Predators. I just don't think it's just the change people think it needs to be. I think it needs to be more than that. But that's also a thing we're going to discuss today. The other question is, why is change not happening? It doesn't appear that they are going to make a coaching change anytime soon. We are not yet at Thanksgiving, which was your benchmark for when we should reevaluate this stuff. I said all the way to New Year's, and it seems like we don't necessarily need to get to either of those to figure out what exactly is going on. The team is worse in almost every major statistical way from last year, which is hard to do. And, of course, they just failed their test on the Global Series international stage where they're supposed to show people that hockey is fun and cool. And they did not do that. So we've got a lot to get to. Sinkers Beverages, if you need to drink. After listening to this show, after watching a team, I did see some of you made the trip to Sweden. God bless all of you. You probably need drinks on the way back. And Sinkers Beverages, while you can search Uber Eats for Sinkers Beverages, and they will deliver booze to your house, office, or party, they will not deliver to Sweden. They can't do that. So I feel so bad for all of you that make that journey. Although, as long as you go into the journey, I guess just saying like, hey, this is about the journey, not about the outcome of two games, then you probably had a great time, because I hear the public transit in Stockholm is spectacular. So Sinkers Beverages, I'm all over the place today. I'm Sinkers Beverages, 5-time liquor store of the year. You've got fantastic expertise in the wine area. You've got bourbon allocation this time of year. You've got an award-winning walk-in beer fridge. Everything you could want from a liquor store. 40 years of service to the local community. Go support Sinkers Beverages. They are huge Preds fans. In fact, I've watched Preds games and Preds playoff games with the owner of Sinkers Beverages, and he is a huge, huge Predators fan. Also equally disappointed currently right now. If you want to get into the comments, please do so. We'd love your questions. We'd love your comments. We'd love to know what direction you want the show to go. We have a bunch of big topics to discuss today, but if you want to chime in, your comments will get first dibs. And please share the show on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, wherever it is you might be watching. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, all that great stuff. 5 stars on the podcast app of choice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. All right, Jeff and Nate, good to see you guys. Eddie, how's everybody doing? Okay. First, let's get to the games in Sweden. You are supposed to go, and you are selected to go play in these types of games to showcase the NHL to an international stage. You've got prominent Swedish players on the team. Yeah, you had a few more a few years ago than you do now, but you still got some. And you go over there, and you're supposed to showcase the product. Now, as it turns out, homegrown Swedish player Philip Forsberg does score a big-time goal. And Stamkos does score another big-time goal. And they happen to win that game. The problem is, outside of those, let's call it generous 5 minutes of hockey, the other 120 minutes or so of hockey were largely pathetic and irrelevant and not the job you're supposed to do on an international stage. Those are my feelings, Emma. What were your feelings watching these two games at 8 a.m. Central Time?
Well, definitely wished that I had gone to Sinkers Beverages before the second game in particular, because I needed to start drinking early that day. I will disagree ever so slightly and say that I think the first game They actually were playing well. I think that they generated a ton of high danger chances, and you could see that in the way they were playing. And like, yes, it's not as exciting, and you don't get any points for high danger chances, but like, it didn't look like bad hockey to me. It looked like they ran into a hot goaltender, the same hot goaltender they ran into 2 years ago in the playoffs, funny enough. But I think that the second game was absolutely abhorrent. It was awful. And it was like I think of all the times when you need to not have a horrible game, that was certainly it. Again, I think I would have been not okay with a loss, but more at this point, I was coming into this kind of hoping they would lose both because I was hoping that would force Barry Trotz's hand to, do something. And so I think that I don't know. I thought the first game was actually pretty good. It was
All
one
right.
of the year, but that to me, even at the time, as I was watching it, I was saying, "Oh, they look good. This won't last." It was like at no point did I think like, "Oh, maybe they're
Yeah.
turning it around. Maybe this." It was like, "Oh, well, even a blind squirrel finds a nut."
Eddie says Trotz feeling guilty about the position he put Bruno in with the roster and not firing him is going to be the death of Preds Twitter. I don't care what happens on Twitter.
You know what I will say though? I find it funny. Maybe funny is not the right word. I don't even know if there's a word, but I find it interesting how many of the same people who were calling for Andrew Brunette's head at any point, whether it was last year, early this year, anything like that, all of those same people are now rushing to his defense as soon as anyone in the media mentions a coaching change. The problem isn't Andrew Brunette. No, we know that. Honestly, the problem is not Andrew Brunette. And
Well,
A does not
he's not the
always
solution either, though. So
no, and that's the thing. People like they've gotten to the point now where they've correctly identified the problem. The problem is the construction of the roster. And so that again, low-hanging fruit, they're like, "Oh, we'll fire the guy who built the roster, Barry Trotz." But I think getting rid of Barry
sure.
Trotz, yeah, getting rid of Barry Trotz doesn't fix the problem. The mess he made is still there. So like, and also who's going to clean it up? And I get where people are coming from with that like coach isn't the problem. He just needs a different roster. I'm like, I get that. But at the same time, you need to have you need to understand that no matter what, the solution to all of this is not going to happen quickly, even with a personnel change. If you change the GM tomorrow, if you change the head coach tomorrow, if you make a big trade tomorrow, none of those things alone is going to fix this. Like this is going to be a multi-year fix that is going to have to happen.
I think there's a lot of people that that totally agree with you that are okay with that and are upset that they're not leaning into that more. But we'll get to that in a little bit because that's kind of my theory on my column. Nate says, I'd like for this show to be better than the team's leadership. I don't know. Maybe we can do that. We'll see. If you brought these players in to win, I think they could still be a whole lot better. If they are a mess, insanity is just staying the course from Brad. If nothing else, Josh says, Nashville gave him the authentic Predators experience. There you go. Mitch says, I am kind of in agreement with Gover, Jeremy K. Gover. Maybe Trotz knows this team can't win regardless of the coach, so he's just going to keep him. We will get to that momentarily. And I'm ready to ride. Kevin says, I'm ready to ride this horse right to the top of the draft board. Woo. Let's go. I am going to present like possible option. We're going to play like a little game later. Famously, all the games on the show go perfectly well. We're gonna play a little game later of like what possibly could be Barry Trotz's plan and strategy here. So I like there's you put a lot in there, and I do think so. Look, this is a perfect time for us to kind of get to like where this team is today, and they are 6-10-4. And as of right now, as of the loss to the Penguins on Sunday, Andrew Brunette is under 500. Now, you can blame Barry Trotz and you can blame the roster construction. I think the players deserve blame too. They're the ones playing the game out there. They're the millionaires, some of them future Hall of Famers that are not playing up to their potential. So I think all of it deserves blame. The roster construction we can say is number one. I can say number two is Andrew Brunette, or number two is the players. We could say injuries is a factor in all of this. You haven't had Roman Josi for the vast majority of the last 2 seasons, this one and last year. Injuries to the defense core last year, major issue, of course, right? Like we can go, like all things are a part of the failure right now. But at the end of the day, the only thing they can do right now is trade players or fire the coach. That's part of the context we all understand. That's not the only thing they can do, but we'll get to that. But they are worse in every statistical measure than one of the worst teams ever last year. Their points percentage is 40 right now. The only time this organization has been below 40% points percentage in a season was their expansion year at 38%. This will be the second worst season statistically in Preds history if this continues. They were 31st in the AHL in offense last year. They're scoring fewer goals this year. They're worse. They were 27th in defense last year in goals allowed per game. They're giving up more. They're 29th this year. The power play is significantly worse. We've documented it. And the penalty kill, while the percentage is about the same, they were 7th last year. They're 14th this year. The old players are getting older by the day, and the young players aren't getting any better. And so, I mean, there's a couple of exceptions in there that we've talked about, trying to sort of find the silver lining in all of this. So at the end of the day, even a coach should take the poorly constructed roster and be able to find some way to maximize the ability. And through now a season and a half of this roster, it's gotten worse. And while he did create some really awesome moments, the 18-game unbeaten streak, namely, and a playoff series, all of which was very fun, maximizing some players like Kiefer Sherwood and, Gus Nyquist was super fun. He, as a whole, regardless of everything else, the Predators are a losing franchise with Andrew Brunette as the head coach. And outside of the 18-game thing, they are 20 games under 500. Like as a head coach, Andrew Brunette is. Not all of it's his fault, but we can't clear our throats anymore on this. This was the week to do it, and we'll get into why he's not, and ask questions about why he's not. I guess my first question is, if it's not, I mean, I don't think you're saying that it's not Andrew Brunette's fault. But like, if you're a good coach, if you're a great coach, and if this is the right fit for you, something would have already happened by now. You would have already made some progress. Somebody would have done something. Like, it's just, sometimes you just the couple needs to divorce for the kids' sake.
Well, and that's kind of the thing is, when I say it's not all on Andrew Brunette, what I'm saying is, and I think you agree with this, that bringing in a different head coach isn't going to miraculously turn this team around. It's not going to turn this roster around. That's all I'm saying, is that it's not just the coach that's the problem. I mean, it rarely is just one thing with things like this. But I mean, if you look at, they're a team that's, like you said, without that 18-game point streak, which I think now we've had enough of a sample size to identify that was more of an anomaly than anything else. Aside from that, 20 games under 500, I think that would be fine, and that would be acceptable in terms of evaluating Andrew Brunette as a head coach, if you had set the narrative 2 years ago as like, hey, we're rebuilding right now. We're going to bring the kids up, let them play, whatever. And they didn't do that. So I think a lot of it has to do with messaging. I think that people would be okay. I mean, nobody likes to lose, but I think that people would be less up in arms about all of this if the messaging was different. Because I think now, you had him say he picked a direction. Barry Trotz picked a direction, and it turned out to be the wrong one. I think that it's the whole like wanting to try to give it one more go with this group that you have. And I think that there's still a way to do that. But the problem is he wanted to give it one more go with the group that he has, making them the centerpieces, making Roman Yossi, UC Saros, Philip Forsberg, them the centerpieces of this thing. So he went right away because those guys are in their prime. I mean, Yossi maybe age-wise, not so much, but he was playing like it until he got injured. You have, like, I think that you're thinking of those guys. Okay, this is the core. This is going to be the centerpiece. We're going to go get other guys who are in win now mode. And it just didn't work. It didn't work. He got the wrong guys for the wrong coach, the wrong system. So I think there's still a way that guys like Philip Forsberg and UC Saros can be part of a championship run in Nashville. It's just they may not be the centerpieces. They might be the role players, the depth players. It might be later on in their careers. I think my opinion of this is that Trotz has dug himself into an unfortunate hole here because I think he hired Andrew Brunette about 5 years too early for what he wants to do here. I think that Brunette would be the guy, and getting that system and I understand the thought process of you want to get the system ingrained in these young kids early now, like while they're coming up through the system. But the problem is it doesn't work for the guys that you brought in. And so again, it's not saying the players are good and the system is bad or vice versa. It's just saying they don't mesh. And so I think that it would have made more sense. Brunette as a hire, even back when it happened, it confused me as wait a second. I thought we were trying to win right now. This doesn't seem like a win right now coach.
So you're what you're doing in a roundabout, like unintentional way, is you're pointing out all the reasons why Barry Trotz shouldn't be the general manager right now today. Now, to your point about messaging, and I put this in the column as well, when Barry Trotz got the job and hired Andrew Brunette and said to everybody, this is our plan. We need patience. We need you to buy into the long-term vision of what we're doing. Andrew's going to learn on the job. I'm going to learn on the job. They would never say that out loud, but that's the implication. And that the players are going to grow and develop and learn on the job all together as one big organization to build to something special down the road. And then stuck with the plan and messaged that plan consistently, made it clear to everybody that is what was going on. You would take lumps. There'd be plenty of fans that are like, well, I'm not going to watch that team play. And you're going to lose some tickets sales, but you're going to gain respect from fans that feel like they're being treated like part of the team, which at the end of the day, they are. Fans are a part of this. It is entertainment. We are the audience. The fans are the clients in all of this. And the fans have been mistreated through all of this. And so my issue, as we look towards what are the strategies that Barry Trotz could possibly be considering right now, the problem is, to your point, no one believes or trusts that this is the right, and I'm not just saying fire Brunette here. I'm saying no one believes that the people making decisions in the organization, they don't have trust in those people to handle these next 3 years of a rebuild the right way. Now, if they get the number one pick and they end up with the number one pick and Gavin McKenna is as good as everybody says he is, and he ends up being a superstar, it's almost like an idiot-proof plan at that point. So, like, sure, there are some things that could happen that doesn't matter who's the GM or the coach. That could be the right thing for the organization down the road. But the reason, the most elegant solution, in my opinion, is never going to happen. But these folks that have been mentioning Barry Trotz as the guy to take over behind the bench, that has stuck in my head ever since we talked about it and ever since they talked about it. Because at the end of the day, I don't think there is a better coach that Predators could hire than Barry Trotz right now, because you don't have a team that's going to contend. You need someone to instill some teamwork and some culture and some standards. You have someone who has a deep understanding of the farm system and the current roster and understands what it's like to stand behind the bench at Bridgestone Arena. He has intimate knowledge of everything that he needs to have intimate knowledge about to do a good enough job to build the team to the next stage. He's not a long-term answer. The problem is, or maybe the cool thing, is that you cannot do both jobs. You cannot be the interim head coach and the general manager and expect to do those jobs the right way. You can't do it. So the most elegant solution here is hire a Stanley Cup championship former coach of yours who clearly still operates a little bit like a head coach. You have a Hall of Fame general manager just like walking around the building. And clearly, I think one of the things that's going to happen through all of this is a new appreciation of David Poile. And he lost a lot of love at the end of his tenure. But I think a lot of people are coming around on that dude knew what he was doing. He may have made a bunch of mistakes, but he also did a lot of good stuff. He made a lot of really smart decisions. And I'm not saying that he's not a long-term answer either. He's not. But in the short term, the odds of you hiring a coach and a general manager today that are going to be here for a championship are almost nothing. You're hiring people to get you through to the competitive phase. And why not have two guys that are a Hall of Famer and a Stanley Cup champion in two roles that they have a ton of experience in, who love and care for the city and the organization? Put them where they belong. They're out. It's like putting Stamkos at center. Barry Trotz at GM is not where he belongs on the ice. He belongs behind the bench. And that nothing he has done has given me any trust that he's going to be able to handle the general managing job correctly. And so you've got this perfectly elegant solution right in front of you. You spend a couple of years. When they're ready to compete, you go hire your coach, you go hire your GM, and you go.
No. I see what you're saying. I do. Like, I understand the logic behind it, but there's so many reasons that doesn't work. Namely that the trust is already lost. The love is lost already, I think. And so here's the thing. Kind of it ties into what I was saying a minute ago, that so actually, if you haven't watched this, not just you, Braden, but anyone who's listening, NHL.com did a cool like video conversation sit down. It was like coffee and conversation with it was Barry Trotz and Kyle Dubas. And I thought that it was cool. And I thought that it was very insightful. Like two guys in very different, like Barry has been in the NHL longer, but not as a GM. Dubas has been a GM longer. But anyway, part of what Barry actually talked about in that conversation is how he hired Brunette. And he's talked about this before too, to a degree, about how he hired Brunette to coach the team that he wants to have. He hired Brunette to coach the team he wants to have. And he acknowledged in this video, he said that I'm a little more old school. I would do things a little bit differently. But that's why I hired him. That's why I hired Brunette, because he has a better understanding of where the game is going. So you have to give Trotz credit for that part of it, that it's like, okay, he knows his own shortcomings and he knows that where Brunette's going to be a better fit in this situation. But then what he did is he went and built a Barry Trotz team for Andrew Brunette to coach. And that's the problem. And so I think that, again, nobody wants to hear it this way. Like, I don't think anyone wants to hear it this way, but I think that I don't know how to say it, but I think that if you look at everything that Barry Trotz has done, he's made plenty of mistakes, plenty of things he's done that's worth criticizing, but he really hasn't leveraged any of their future. He hasn't sacrificed.
It's a very appealing situation for a future general manager. I agree.
Stop it.
It is.
I'm not.
It absolutely is. That's a great point you're making.
Yes, but okay, let me just finish this by saying that I think that he, you can't say, wow, he's a terrible GM and he has run this entire franchise into the ground. In the present, yes, that is correct. But if you look ahead, if you look at, he's trying to build an Andrew Brunette team, he's trying to get this young core of players together and actually go and, look and make a run together and really grow up together in this system and play this new, this fast, this aggressive style of hockey. The draft picks that Barry has made have actually fit very well with that. So again, I feel that he has hired the wrong coach, or not the wrong coach. He hired the right coach,
time.
but he hired him 5 years early.
Well, like, I know you hate Pete DeBoer, so I'll use this as an example. Like, Pete DeBoer is a terrible coach for this team right now. To your point about timing, if this team, if Andrew Brunette or fill in the blank backup coach or next coach builds the roster for a couple of years, and all of a sudden you're starting to see, like, okay, you're starting to see the formation of a future organization. That's when you bring Pete DeBoer in. You bring him in when you've already done the 3 years of sucking and you're at a rebuild stage where, like, now they need to have their asses pushed. And if they get pushed to the point, like, sure, it's only going to last 3 years and everybody's going to hate him and he's going to leave, but he goes to the Western Conference Finals every single time he's in the playoffs or he's coaching a team, but not with a terrible team. He's got to have a decent roster that's around him. And so it's all about timing with a coach like that. Let's go back to, because I'm getting a lot of Stillman comparisons, and that hurts my feelings. My column is about that it's time to make a change. I'm a little tongue in cheek on the Barry Trotz, David Poile thing here. I just hope everybody realizes that, because they are not going to hire a coach better than Barry Trotz if they fire Andrew Brunette, and Barry Trotz is a better coach than Andrew Brunette. They could hire a general manager who's better than Barry Trotz. And so that's ultimately the point here, is that I don't know if you fix the problem by only fixing one of the issues. I think you need to fix both problems. And so I would never have even considered Barry Trotz going back to coaching if national folks hadn't said, I think it's only a matter of time before he's back there doing interim stuff.
National folks said that because it's a lazy take and it's an easy take.
Fine. I'm not saying, what I'm saying is it's just got into my brain. And now I'm going, like, how do you kill two birds with one stone here? How do you get rid of your two problems? And my point is you could do so much worse than Barry Trotz as the head coach. And you're not going to do much worse than Barry Trotz as the general manager currently. so
well, if you've
got to solve both problems.
Yeah, I don't want to keep, because I know that you're being tongue in cheek about it, and we're not, like, I'm not.
It's not a real thing. It's not going to happen.
I know. I'm not going to continue to pull at that thread, but I do think the important thing here is that no solution is going to happen quickly, regardless of what change you make or don't make. Like, the solution that you're looking for is not going to come imminently. It doesn't with things like this. It's not like, you just get rid of this one thing and then everything will be fine, because it's not going to be that. And again, I keep seeing people, talking about there's, like, look what he did. Like, well, actually, can I detour the conversation for just a second? Please. Because
this detour brought to you by Sinkers Beverages.
Yes. One thing I have, if you've had too much to drink, take a detour, get off the road. I think that people talking about the players that Barry Trotz has got rid of, they want to look at everything that Barry Trotz has done and make it fit whatever narrative they have about Barry Trotz. So it's things like, he gets rid of these players for nothing. Like, they're so young and promising and whatever. He got rid of Askarov. He got rid of Dante Fabro, got rid of this and that. And I'm like, not like, can we look at every move individually? I think that's the biggest thing I look at, is that people are like, nope, everything he does is bad. Everything he touches turns to the opposite of gold, whatever that is. I don't know, coal. It's Christmas time.
Yeah, I guess
that's what I'm thinking of. But I think that
they're always in a lump too. You just get coal only in a lump. It's never
just a lump.
Yeah.
But I think people look at, so what's a name that's been in the news lately is Phil Tomasino, because the Penguins put him on waivers. Can Preds Twitter, for the love of God, stop talking about Phil Tomasino right now?
I totally agree with you there. Do you think Barry Trotz is the right general manager for the job right now, today, where the team is moving forward? Forget the past. Is he the guy capable of doing what this team needs to be done to get back to being competitive and winning? Because that's the only question that matters right now for Governor Haslam.
with the roster they have currently, like, they're not winning this year. Like, they're not.
I know. I'm
I
talking right, which is his fault.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think that, and I've always said this, that general managers, you can't look at a 2-year span and make a sweeping judgment on whether they are fit to be a general manager. I think you have to look in at least 4 to 5 years. And so he's made a lot of questionable decisions. But again, that goes back to your point about not sticking to the plan. If he can stick to the plan, there's a way that
Why do
all
we
of
have
this
faith that
works.
that's going to happen now, though? Like, I like Barry personally. I think he's a great dude. I think he's a really good coach.
Well, I think it's going to happen now because you have no other option right now.
That's going to.
Before they had the option, it was like, we're kind of on the edge here. Let's go for it. Now they're not sniffing anything. They're not
Right.
close to anything. So I don't think you have an option now. Now, did you take the very not, very unsavory route to get here? Yes. And that is Barry Trotz's fault for sure. But I think a lot of people tie in like, oh, the signing UC Saros to the extension, that was the beginning of it. I still think there's a world where UC Saros gets signed to that extension, which, by the way, is incredibly affordable with the cap going up. I think there's a world where that happens and you still become competitive 5 years from now. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I think Askarov wasn't ready yet, even though he thought he was, but he wasn't.
He's having a good little stretch here.
I think that's fine. So is UC Saros. I think that signing Saros is fine. I don't think that's the problem. I still think there's a world in which can be a part of this team. Maybe he's not the number one by the time you're competing for a Stanley Cup. Probably not anymore. That's okay. But I think that the timeline just didn't add up. Well, but the point is, I don't want to get too specific on the Saros signing, but I just think that a lot of people tie that as the, it's like, that's where this all started falling apart. No, I think that it was fine at the time. I think that now you have to look at, when you're evaluating Barry Trotz as a general manager, I think you have to look at where this team is now. This is not a winning team. So you have to evaluate what he does when it comes to drafting and developing players, because that, for a team that's in this current situation, that is what's going to be the most important to evaluate Barry Trotz. Like, not just his, like, oh, can he get good returns and trades? I mean, yes, of course that's important, but I think right now, if you're talking about, is he the right guy for this team at this time, you got to see how he drafts and how he develops. And quite honestly, I think he's drafted very well so far.
Right, but putting people in place to do the developing is the other half of that job, and we just don't know if that's available yet or not. I think, to your point about, like, and I think there's enough information and enough decisions now for both Brunette and Trotz that it is no longer about going through each decision. In life, we are not our worst decision. We are not our best decision. We are a collection of decisions. And over time, that defines who we are. And that is true as people. That's true as parents. That's true as general managers and as coaches. And right now, if you go through with a little bit of hindsight, not 5 years of hindsight, but some hindsight. And I'm the one who was like pro Barry Trotz for most of the last 18 months. If you go through and look at all the critical decisions that have taken place, not like on a granular level, but taken in totality, it hasn't worked. In totality, it's been the wrong thing to do. Whether that's the spending spree, I don't know about Saros. I don't want to get into that like you. I like Saros. I think the contract's pretty solid. But is Askarov quickly now showing that maybe he was the right choice? Could have played Lingan in. Some of the roster moves he's made, hiring Brunette. He's a losing coach. The roster he built was a losing roster. This is all on him. And so I'm not saying he should have learned everything and been a Hall of Fame general manager on day one. But he's kind of just like acting like that. And because he's swapped plans and switched this and switched that, and I don't think he does himself any favors with his communication style, which I appreciate as a radio host, and I don't think does him any favors as a fan. I think He kind of just likes to talk in circles a little bit, and he gets himself in trouble. I think he was completely tone deaf in some of his interviews in the last week and a half. I think he's missing the point when it comes to communicating with the fan base here. There needs to be some humility involved and acknowledging where this team is going, because if we now transition to sort of like, all right, they're going to keep Andrew Brunette. Like, if they're not firing him this week, they're going to keep Andrew Brunette. So they're keeping Andrew Brunette. And if I had truth serum and I'm sitting in Barry Trotz's office and no one's listening, and I say, what's your plan? Why are you keeping him? I want to lay out a few reasons why that could be the case. If I'm missing one, please jump in and y'all tell me what's going on here. And then we'll decide together what we think is most likely here. Number one, he's sandbagging the entire NHL. He unintentionally is trying to get Gavin McKenna, or maybe intentionally. He's playing 4D chess, Emma. He's saying, look, I've got a coach who is not that good. The roster I've built is not that good, both of which I decided on. I put them together, didn't work out. I'm going to keep it together because I know it's going to be bad, and I know we got a chance to get really high draft picks from here on out. I'm going to trade. I brought in Eric Halla because I knew he wasn't very good, and I knew that would make us bad, and I'm going to trade him at the deadline. I knew. It's all part of my 4-dimensional chess game I'm playing with the rest of the NHL. That's a possibility. Number two.
It's possible. I don't know that it's likely, but it's possible.
Number two. He truly does believe that Andrew Brunette is the best guy to develop the young players that he is drafting and acquiring. I think far more likely that is the case.
Yes.
And in the meantime, he's totally fine with apathetic fans not showing up to games, not caring about the product because he's mismanaged and mismessaged the entire strategy. Okay, that's number two, right? Number three, he doesn't know what he's doing. Now, if you put a Occam's razor here, what is the most obvious possibility here? What is the most likely explanation between those three? Which one is it?
I mean, I think I partly agree with number two. I think option number two. I think it's somewhere between 2 and 3. I think little bit. I think it's a little bit. I don't think it's 4D chess. I think he would.
I agree that there's a 2% chance that's what he's doing.
Yeah, no, I think it's. I genuinely do believe that he believes that that Andrew Brunette is the right guy to develop these young players, which again, all good, all great. I think if you had you did communicate that. He did communicate that. He said, that Andrew Brunette is the guy for these younger players to develop. But the problem is the younger players right now, I think, are not. That would make more sense if the younger players were the centerpiece, were the core of this roster, and they're not. And so, and not to say they will never be, but I say that meaning with right now, the way that Barry Trotz has built this roster, you can't have the young players be the centerpiece. It's not going to, just going on name brand, name recognition, you're not going to be like, all right, Steven Stamkos, you head down to the fourth line and we'll put Luke Evangelista up here. And so I think that that was the problem, is going out and getting those brand name players. I think all of this would have been fine. I really do think there is a lot of option number 2 in here, which is that he thinks Brunette's the right guy to develop these young players. However, he has not put Andrew Brunette in an environment that allows that to happen right now.
There's also no evidence that Andrew Brunette has done that outside of
because
his
of
first year
said.
with Kiefer Sherwood, I guess.
No, but that's because of what I just said, because there's no, again, if you had sold off the veteran, if you hadn't brought in Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault, whatever, and you said, okay, Luke Evangelista, Zach LaRue, those are going to be the guy, Matthew Wood, whoever, these are going to be our top 6 guys. And we acknowledge that they are not experienced and we're probably going to lose. We're going to do some losing for a little bit while they learn. then all of that would have been fine. And I think you're in a better position. Andrew Brunette's in a better position to develop those players and, actually work with them and make them into the kind of team that Barry Trotz wants. But I think that because you brought in these veterans, Andrew Brunette's hands are tied now. You have to. You sent one message by signing those veterans and saying, okay, we're going to win it right now. And it's not just about the message you send to the fans. It's about the message sent to those players. Like Jonathan Marchessault, Steven Stamkos, they were all brought in like, hey, we want to win here now. And so you can't tell them that and then go like bench them, put them on the fourth line, reduce their ice time, all of that, because that would be.
That is my issue here with this. And Jeff says, name one player that Brunette has developed over the last season and a half. There was another one in here that says, Millsap says, well, no, I disagree with that. Like Svechkov has been, now he's the one that has the deciding factor on ice time and where to play players. And he consistently moves them all around, doesn't give consistent ice time to Svechkov. Svechkov has not gotten better. Blankenberg, okay, not a building block piece, but he's gotten better. Willsby, okay, all right. Stasny's gotten better. I give the player a lot of credit there for that because of the extenuating circumstances of his sort of career. But like Matthew Wood has been fine. He's been a nice piece. Also the highest draft pick they have. Like he should be the best player. There should be the best prospect. And I guess he's doing a good job by keeping him where he's supposed to keep him. But there's not a lot of evidence that Andrew Brunette, when given the opportunity to take a player and turn him into something more, there isn't an example of it. And that's the problem. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm not saying Trotz isn't hurting his ability to do that. I agree with you. But you would think that if he was the right guy, that he's so good at this, there would be some evidence. And there's just not.
I would argue that I don't disagree with you about Svechkov as an example, but I think a lot, and I'm not defending Brunette for the way that he's handled Svechkov and all of the moving around and ice time and all of that stuff. I'm not defending that, but I am arguing that I think a lot of the time that has less to do with the player in question and more to do with other players. It's like, well, if you're constantly thinking, well, we got to get Stamkos going, then like you're going to move things around to make it work for him. You're going to do it to make it work for Marchessault, all of that. And so I think that when you look again, that's simplifying it slightly, but I think it's not always just about like, oh, well, Svechkov made one mistake, go banish him to Siberia forever. Right. I don't think it's that. I think a lot of it is because of the way that that Barry Trotz has built this roster. It's like, well, we're paying these guys this much money. We told them we're going to try and win right now. So Bruno, make it happen. And it's a really bad position, and it's an unfair position to put Brunette in. So if you're looking at why does he still have a job, there it is. I mean, I've argued that, this team needs to be, that there needs to be a change. And I wrote a whole column about this, about how they needed to make the coaching change this week. They needed to fire Andrew Brunette. And I said in that column, I said that, look, I don't even think Brunette's the only issue. And I don't think firing him is going to really change much. I don't think Luke Richardson's going to get a ton more out of this roster than Brunette did.
Nope.
But what it does is it sends that message. It sends the message to the fans.
This isn't good enough.
We acknowledge this is bad. We have to make a change. But I think Trotz, as you said, hasn't mastered that part of the job yet of sending the messaging and communicating to the fan base. He is more concerned about communicating to his players what he wants to play. And that is a very head coach characteristic of his.
And the way he moves roster players off roster has been very head coachy. I want to be clear. I don't think you fire Andrew Brunette and all of a sudden they're a winning franchise. Like I want to be clear.
I know you don't think that.
I'm not saying that to the fans out there, you don't make this move and then a guy comes in and they're winning hockey games. I think you make the move to show the fans that you care about what they think and feel. And that this is not acceptable. This isn't good enough. They were one of the worst teams in franchise history, one of the worst offenses in the NHL last year, and beyond all like possibility, they're worse at everything. And it doesn't appear that anything is going to change with the two most important people that have no evidence that they are doing their jobs well, regardless of whose fault that is. Because I agree with you. It's not all Brunette's fault. And so I just don't, we can't keep saying it's not all his fault and nothing's going to change when and keep doing this every night. Like, it's just not. Now, again, hockey's a funny game. It's a funny sport. Sometimes you go on great runs, even against all odds when you're not supposed to. I get all of that. There's just no evidence that either of the two of them are the right guy for the job currently. And maybe 5 years from now, they're both like masters of their craft, but they're not right now. And there's no evidence that either of them are going to figure it out. And what I should have said around number 3 when I was like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. What I really mean is he knows he made a mistake. He knows he screwed up the roster and maybe hired the wrong coach, and that he's not willing to admit it. That's really what number 3 is. It's like intentionally being stubborn around your own ego, which is not normally a thing I would say about Barry Trotz. But I
don't know that it's enough I don't know that it's as much ego. I agree with
it's
that.
Hard to admit. You can't admit that stuff either, but like,
well, and I like that clarification, and that's what makes me even lean even more into the argument that I think the real answer lies somewhere between 2 and 3. I think it's a combination. It's not just about stubbornness and ego. I was right. It's not that simple, but I think a lot of it does have to do with he does want Andrew Brunette to be there to develop the younger players, to work with them when they come into their prime. But you can't get rid of him now and assume that he'll just be hanging out waiting for you to hire him again in 3 to 5 years. And so I think that there is a level of, yes, he thinks Brunette's the right guy, but he knows he messed up and hired him too early. And so I think that there is a little bit of both there. And I think that, again, I keep coming back to the young players. Well, he hasn't done anything to develop the young players because Barry Trotz has put him in a situation where it's almost impossible to do that. You can't focus on developing young players and getting Steven Stamkos to pop off every night. You can't do that. I get that that's the job of the head coach. You're supposed to, work with what. So I'm not saying maybe you can't is a little bit too strong, but I think that Andrew Brunette was brought in here as like, hey, you're gonna, we're gonna get you these young players. They're fast, they're strong, they're gonna play your kind of hockey. This is what we're gonna do. And
new NHL is here. The new NHL has finally arrived in Nashville.
But it's like the new NHL, and
it's my 1997 way of thinking.
But also the idea is like, and you think about it, it seems like forever ago, but if you think about it, when Brunette was brought in, that first season, the 18 game season, going into that year, we were all just kind of like, well, let's see what happens. And I think that the expectations were so low, and that was fine because it was a new head coach. I mean, like, new NHL head coach. He had interim experience, but he had never been a true head coach, new GM. So it was very much like low expectations, low pressure. And that was fine. But then Trotz was the one who dramatically shifted that. He shifted the entire narrative when they overperformed and they over-delivered in that first year. He went and he added those pieces. He gave Brunette an incredibly different job than the one that he was hired to do. And so I'm not saying that I'm not totally absolving Brunette of blame in this. I'm like, yes, this is how you learn, and you should be able to thread the needle and work with the roster you have and make adjustments. I get that, but I think you are asking a lot of a guy with very little head coaching experience.
I think the vast majority of the Predators fan base is already to like the depression and acceptance stage of grief. And I think you're still in the bargaining stage, which is the third stage of grief. And I might be in stage 2. I might be in stage acceptance. 2, which is anger.
I'm definitely in acceptance. I'm just trying to add some nuance to this explanation. Look, I've been in acceptance for probably a year now. I'm just saying that I can't just come on a show for an hour and be like, well, such as like, I mean, I can't just
welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Everything is terrible. And that's all I have to say.
I want to know Eddie and Jeff and Todd and Mortal Explorer and Nate and Josh. Gover, of course, seeing you in there as well, Kevin. I want to know what stage of grief you are all at. What are you? There's 5 stages of grief, of course. You got denial, you got anger, you got bargaining, you got depression, and you got acceptance. I want to know where you guys are at because I feel like there's a lot of bargaining going on. Whoa, well, but what if Barry Trotz hadn't just signed Steven Stamkos? What if?
That's
There's
not
a lot
bargaining.
of bargaining. That's what literally. That's what the what if is explaining things away that you think could have been different and are like, oh, but we could have done this if only this happened. So I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just saying that there's some people in here going, and I can't tell honestly, like, because I think the vast majority of the interaction we have at Lower Broad on the chat and on this show is sort of like, we don't trust Andrew Brunette, we don't trust Barry Trotz, and we need to move on, even though it's probably not going to happen. That, and clearly not right now. But I do feel like sometimes, and I don't know if it's Kevin that's been in here, where there's a lot, it's not excuse making. That's not what I mean. It's like you said, it's nuance and context. It is like trying to clarify why we think Andrew Brunette needs to get fired. And I don't think we have to do that anymore because I think we've cleared our throat enough by saying it's not all his fault. It's injuries. It's the player's responsibility. It's the general manager for not putting together the right roster with the right coach. It's hiring a guy before he might have been ready for this particular situation. It's all this stuff. But at the end of the day, the Predators are a losing franchise with this head coach and this general manager. And nothing that either of them have done as a body of work gives me any optimism or trust that they are the ones who can make the right decisions to get the franchise out of this mess. Now, maybe a lot of fans are like, cool, keep it right there for the next 3 years. And that is sort of like beyond acceptance. It's like the 6th stage of grief, which is like in sports, like, no, let's really be bad. And then we can be good after that because we're so bad. So I don't know. I don't know. I want to understand where the fan base is at. And apathy is the word that generally comes up on these chats right now and on the chat in Lower Broad and other things. So I don't know where we're going from here, Emma. Sinkers Beverages?
I can't say what I'm truly I mean, again, people are going to take this a certain way, and it's not meant to be. It's not meant as, cruel or antagonistic in any way. I just think, and I've said this before, that this is a fair weather fan base, and I'm not talking about everybody. I know that there are like some really passionate fans of this team, but they don't have a long history. They just haven't been around long enough.
We're a very fickle sports entertainment city. We move from shiny object to shiny object very fast. It's just how the city works in general.
It's an entertainment town. That's exactly what it is. And you're going to move to the next big entertainment. Like, whoa, this isn't, suiting me. Well, I'm just going to go find something else because there's always something else in Nashville. And so I think that now to that end, when you get a team, this is where, look, I'm going to say something positive about 2017. This is where you get that fan base and you get the city so invested and so all in on it because they get excited. You want to give them something to be excited about, and they will be all in on that when the time comes. But you can't expect them to just stick around. And, it's not like a team like Buffalo, for example, or even, like the Leafs. Like they just have a longer history. So even when the team is not doing well, they're in towns where there isn't much else to care about.
I know.
And so I think that's what's going to happen. So again, when I say fair weather fan base, I don't mean that they're not real fans or anything like that. I just mean, to your point, I think that they, it's a fickle entertainment town.
If you don't keep us engaged, like pretty consistently, we've got a lot of other options to engage us. And
for sure.
And I think we've done a show on this also where it's like, and Kevin says, I am excited about his draft picks. I agree. That's the one thing we all kind of agree on is like, we think they've done a pretty good job taking players. And I've talked to Barry specifically about like why he takes certain players when he takes them. And it's like, I like his strategy around that, which is elite skills. He is looking for an elite skill. It's why they ended up with Molendijk over a lot of other defensemen that they could have taken right there in that spot in that first round pick. I do think we've done the conversation around like and I think I wrote a column about it actually. Like, what does Nashville want to be as a hockey town? And if you want to be the crazy lunatics who are at times like Tennessee football fans, University of, that cross a line of like human behavior into like the absurdity because you're so passionate, you're probably going to get results sooner. You're probably going to, people are going to listen to that fan base more. Athletic directors are under more pressure. Coaches are under more pressure. Presidents are under more pressure, and you've got to deliver results to a fan base like that. So they demand there's a high expectation, but it also comes with like sometimes atrocious human behavior, number one. And it sort of is antithetical to how Nashville exists as a town in general. Our personality is like, nah, be cool, man. Like, leave that celebrity alone. Or, hey, it's cool, we'll go over here. Or, hey, man, just act like you've been there before. Like, it's kind of antithetical to how Nashville functions culturally as a city. And I don't know how to connect those two things.
Well, and to that end, I think that's very clear in the way that Nashville is being talked about, or more accurately, not talked about in the national narrative right now regarding the NHL. It's when the Leafs are doing bad, everyone's talking about it. Right. The Preds are doing bad, it's fine. We just don't talk about them anymore. Like, exactly. No one nationally is like, oh my God, the Nashville Predators. What? It's like, it comes up, sort of as an aside, like, well, damn, that sucks. And then you move on. Like, no one is like, ah. And so I think that that's just kind of how they show up in the national conversation. And I think going back to just quickly circling back to the whole, bargaining thing and what if they had done this, I'm not saying that any of that for my own health or to make my own self feel better. I genuinely think it's because people get so fixated and they get so stuck on one thing. It's like, I can't believe he did this and this was bad and this was a horrible decision.
Dante Fabro.
You know what? Maybe it is. But that's where we are. You can't keep being like, not saying you can't keep being upset. Like, yeah, guys, don't be upset that he signed all the veterans. I'm not saying that. I'm like, yes, that was a problem. But being angry and hating him for it now isn't, it doesn't.
I think it's fair. You don't have to hate. No, I think hate. Okay. Hate is wrong. Like,
it's fair to be angry. Hate is wrong no matter what, full stop. But it's fair to be angry. I'm saying that. But what I think where people get stuck is they're so stuck being angry about things that have already happened that they can't look forward and they can't look at like, hey, these draft picks that we have actually pretty good. Well, now, the good draft picks, that doesn't undo the bad signings and it doesn't offset. I understand. So you can still be upset about that and still acknowledge that was a bad decision. That's fine. But one does not offset the other.
And that is why I felt the urge to write the column. It is why I have the thing that is most prominent in all of my analysis and all of my study and all my conversations on this is only looking forward. And the only thing I can think of looking forward is that these two individuals are not the individuals that need to be in their jobs for this franchise to get back to being great again. I just don't think there's no evidence. I can't find any evidence that says these are the right two guys for the job. And I don't think doing one without the other is the right answer either. I don't. I'm now to that point. Again, 3 years from now, I guarantee you Barry Trotz is a better GM, and I guarantee you Andrew Brunette's a better coach. It might be here. It probably won't be. But like, that's my issue is if I only, if I only look forward, I cannot find a reason why this is the right strategy. And I might be wrong about that, but like, that's my personal take on it. And I don't know. I think here, More to Explore said it. The results are now undeniable. The theory and the reality are no longer separate. And I think that's kind of where I'm at on this, is I've seen they are a losing franchise over 2.5 seasons. Nobody's gotten better. The old players don't work. The young players aren't developing. The free agent signings aren't working. The trades aren't working. The only thing that's working is the thing that's not here, the draft picks, supposedly. And I'm on board with that. But like, literally nothing else has worked. They've gotten worse. The things that they've decided to do made the team worse. And I didn't think that was possible. So I guess maybe I'm still in the anger phase about this. Maybe I need to do some more processing. Who knows? We all have therapists for that. Mortal Explorer says you can bond over trauma. And this is really fascinating, actually. The bad rebuild years will be very telling how the fan base will do because we've never seen it before. That is very true because the culture of this fan base, as a season ticket holder in the early 2000s and even into Lavi's years and then starting to cover it in 2016, the culture of this fan base has always been chip on our shoulder, small market, non-traditional. We're just this cool little thing that happens in the middle of this massive entertainment global city. And we're a cool little club that we all know what we're talking about because we're in this club here together. And then 17 brought a bunch of people in that aren't like that, which is also positive. And the Preds put their arms around those people. But those people are not going to be the ones that die through the rebuild years. They're going to just go off and do something else. And so I agree. What happens to a fan base that is in this weird, trauma, denial, stages of grief, processing, financially, the commitment is huge. Like there's just a lot that fans have to think through if they're truly okay with diving into the rebuild, which we've also done an entire show about. So
yeah. And I think too, just to put a little bow on this, as you mentioned, we all do have therapists for that, and media members are not your therapists, so please stop trauma dumping on us about
trauma dumping, man,
you are about how bad this team is, because I can't. There's nowhere for my brain to put that information. I'm sorry.
Do you trauma dump into a drama cauldron?
No, no. Those are two different things.
Two different things. Okay. So where do you trauma dump? Like, is it
all over me? Like all over. It's like trauma projectile vomit with a lot of these people. And I just can't take it. Please, like, if you can be upset, please be respectful. I understand you're upset about the team and how everything's gone. And I understand there's every reason to be upset. But if you can't be upset about a team without being disrespectful of a human being who's just trying to do their job and covering the team, then you should go see an actual therapist, please. And thank you.
I would argue that you all need to go see actual therapists anyway. But
yes,
the question is, do you have the right therapist that can talk you through your Predators fandom? Now, that would be a talented therapist that you've picked out for the right reasons.
Yes.
All right. Sinkers Beverages, everybody. Shotgun Boys Barbecue, too. Awesome. Make sure you check out Nashville, by the way. Brand new documentary from 440 Sports that is out. It's 440 Media. It's about the history of craft beer in Nashville. Nashville with an M right there. That's an M as in Mary. Make sure you check it out. 7-part series. All the other episodes are up right now, so you can listen to the entire thing. It's a story about old Nashville. It's a story about these unbelievable characters that came together kind of against all adversity, natural disasters, a global, two different global crises, and a lot of bad regulation and tax law in this state that sort of kept the beer industry from exploding. A lot of the people that came together to create the beer scene we've got today. Got a chance to sit down and interview all those great folks. So it's a really cool story. I really enjoyed doing it. I worked really hard on it. I hope you guys. Chris Chamberlain is the other writer and voice on it. He is the preeminent food critic in the city. So awesome to have him on board with this. And so far, it's gotten some good response. I hope you guys like it. It's very much like a music record or a beer. You just work really hard on it. You put it out in the world, and you're like, I hope people like it. Because maybe they don't, so we'll see. But please go check it out. Nashville with an M. Nate says, love the first episode. Thank you for that. I do appreciate you guys. So go listen and share it. Tell people about it. Same with this show as well. Lower Broad Hockey and the Gold Standard, always covering your Nashville Predators. Nate's got some stuff, or Nate. Nick has got some stuff for you guys around Svechkov and around Ryan Ufko. We're going to continue to try to kind of cover the personality of some of the young players as they are going through this time, because I know we don't want just the same firing a coach conversation over and over and over again. So we understand that, and we're trying to cover it in a different way. For Emma, I am Braden. Thank you for listening. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you next time.